Coming up on Added Time.
It's been poor, to say the least. One of the worst performances I've seen.
Because everyone loved Ange and the way he played it.
We've all been booed before. I've been booed by my home.
I've been booed for 2 decades.
Yeah.
Rob, sorry to cut in, but I want to get
You need to cut in, otherwise I'll just keep going.
So their motto should be, to dare is to sit in a low block. Foz?
Yes.
Hello.
Robbie Slater.
Welcome to the show.
The Bulldog.
Huh?
I must be lost.
You're in the right place.
No, it's great. It's great to see you guys. And thanks for the invite. And always love talk football.
That's right. Yeah. It's good to see you.
30 years on since you won the Premier League.
Yes, and it's showing, and it's kind of depressing, but it's not. It's just life, and it's amazing. We always have our own stories about it. Things go so fast, and you look back and you go, "Wow, where did that all go?" But mate, I'm one of those just privileged to have been there at that point in time. And it's a bit surreal when you think back and you think, wow, you won the Premier League, and like you have as well. And it's quite mind-blowing. It's very difficult to for my younger children to understand.
Yeah.
Because they refuse. They go, "No, Dad, you didn't." I go, "Well,
just to picture you there."
Yeah, there's a photo, but that's not you, Dad.
Yeah.
I go,
Well, it's a different haircut, isn't it? So
there is definitely a haircut, and it's not a transplant, and it's certainly not dyed. It's just that natural
like
colour.
it was.
Like it was. Well, I did look at the vegetable colour. I ruled it out.
It didn't bring back the carrot colour.
We're all natural.
And you're that 30 years, it kind of also puts into perspective the lack of Australian players at that level today
100%.
as well. When we look back at Jono before you, and then
David
Dukes
Mitchell
and Harry and
Krunčević and
even across
Europe.
Yeah.
Look, and you were a part of that.
Yeah.
And we just don't do it anymore. That is a long discussion.
Yeah.
That is not for here. But let's celebrate the fact that we are where we are, and that's for a lot of reasons. Yeah. But those were really the days. When
Quite
we had
incredible.
players, 9, 10,
Everywhere.
11 players everywhere.
We took that for granted.
Zelic, Ocons.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable players everywhere. Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, Rob, is ironically, you're a massive Liverpool supporter. One of your great heroes was manager Kenny Dalglish of that Blackburn side that won that title. The following season was a massive drop. 7th place eventually, but it was a real struggle. It knocked out.
It looked like it was going to be worse.
Yeah, knocked out the group stage of the Champions League. I think it was Spartak Moscow, Legia Warsaw.
And there was a fight live on air with David Batty and Lasso.
Not too dissimilar to what's going on with Liverpool right now, although they did win on the weekend. Can you see any similarities?
Yes and no. Obviously, form is something you look at, Boz. And the one thing with Blackburn is Kenny Dalglish left in the summer. So we just won the Premier League. And then the news came out. I remember getting a call from Tim Sherwood saying that the gaffer's gone and no one knows why. And that was typical Kenny. He did it at Liverpool after a famous FA Cup game against Everton, 4-4. And the next day he walked out of Liverpool. But he walked out as us as champions. And Ray Harford, God rest his soul, he passed away far too early a number of years ago. But he took over and Ray was for me, some people are just made to be assistants. And I think Ray was a great assistant. I mean, he did a lot of the coaching. I mean, Kenny used to play the 5 sides. He was still the best player. Yeah. But Ray would do all the coaching. He was a great man. But in reality, Ray wasn't a big fan of me, I don't think. And Kenny had signed me, and so I actually left. Now, I could say that that's why they had such a bad season, but no one would believe that, right? So I wasn't a part of that, but it got pretty bad, because obviously I was in touch. Graham Lascelles was a very good friend, and Tim. It went south, and they ended up finishing 7th, but it could have been a lot worse the way it went.
Well, Liverpool turned things around on the weekend as we sit here right now. There's a midweek round coming up, but he made a ballsy call, didn't he, to put Mo Salah on the pine. Discussed it well after, kind of made it clear really well after, I thought, saying, well, we're playing too many games and we've got a smallish squad at the moment with injuries. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if Liverpool find form when he does that to Mo Salah.
Yeah, it's a big call and I want to get because you're a Liverpool fan, I want to get your view of where they're at the moment. But that's always a huge call for a manager because it can go either way. You know, if they don't get the results when you've dropped the biggest player there who's been consistent for a very long time, and the media are calling for him to be dropped, and probably rightly so, and all of a sudden you resist that, and many managers will, and then you make that call. You could see Salah on the bench. You know, if that doesn't work, and then the next couple of games goes badly, it goes really bad because then in the entire dressing room, you know, the kind of, you know, the image of that coach and his decision-making quality can go down pretty rapidly. And all of a sudden it can be a personal battle then between, you know, the great player and the coach. But I think, from my perspective, I thought they were always going to come back. I was interested in Wirtz's performance on the weekend.
He was good. He was good.
I thought he was absolutely magnificent.
And for as much as Slot needed the result to go his way, which it did, Wirtz needed to play well as well.
Agreed.
And he was the best player on the pitch.
And
he was fantastic.
His sack scoring as well, very important.
And he's class. I mean, he's coming to a team that's... How did you say it? You guys know. We've played in teams, and normally one player can have an off day, or one can lose form, or maybe even two. But it's like Van Dijk and Salah fell off a cliff for 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a drop in form. It was just...
I'll say Konate as well.
Yeah, and Konate's had a disaster. Well, Real Madrid's pulled out of the race for Konate. Now, he was rumoured to be going there, but Wirtz was superb. Yeah. And I think at times we've seen glimpses of that in this poor run. But everything went right for Slot against West Ham, and it was a big, big result.
With Salah going to the African Cup of Nations later in the month for a whole month, would you now, after what happened on the weekend, they've got a lot of games coming up, obviously got Sunderland at home, would you say to him, look, listen, you are going away, I'm going to try to get a little bit of cohesion, or would you just say, OK, well, we're playing at home against Sunderland, you had a rest, I want you to come and be your best?
Yeah, well, of course, now you don't want him to have the feeling that he's playing against the second-string sides as well, or the lower teams, you know, but... I think everyone has different ways. The point for me is always to look at it and say, OK, these are flashpoint moments where the coach has to establish authority and consistency and credibility, not just inside the dressing room is most important by far, but also outside. Right? Because if that goes wrong over a couple of games, that could have gone far, 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 far worse. And they're already at the bottom, you know, they're already in a situation no one anticipated. No. So it takes, you know, courage, I think, to make those big calls in those moments. And how he manages it now, I think he has the strength within the group and publicly. Everyone said, OK, the great call, big call, and it worked perfectly. Now it's much easier to manage the Salah situation.
Thomas Frank at Spurs.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 months of, you know, evidence about where Spurs are at as opposed to where they were at or where they were going or not going under Ange Postecoglou, however you want to look at it. Boz, which way are they going under Thomas Frank?
Well, it's quite evident, isn't it? Last season, in Ange's season, 13 games played, 20 points, 7th position under Ange Postecoglou. Right now, Thomas Frank, 13 games played, 10th position, 18 points. So 2 points difference as well. After 13 games, which I think is a fair way to sort of measure somebody, at least after 10 games. They've conceded 11 goals in this last week. It's been poor, to say the least. One of the worst performances I've seen from a Spurs side in a North London derby. Not as much shame going up against Paris European champions and copping 5.
They actually played OK now.
Yeah, but on the weekend, I mean, I think even the most ardent, loyal Spurs fan would have to admit at half-time, it could have been 3 or 4 that they were down.
Definitely.
All right, they were down 2. OK, second half, and we all know about teams, right? Generally, when teams are 2-0 down, they start playing, and they get a bit of a reputation that they only start playing when they're 2-0 down. They've got to be very, very careful because in their next games coming up,
tough.
They've got Brentford, which is obviously the manager's old club. After that, they got Newcastle coming up tomorrow morning, and Brentford on the weekend at home. Home's been a big problem for them, that's psychological. Slavia Prague in the Champions League, which should be OK. But then, like, Forest away, Liverpool at home. If they happen to lose, let's say, I don't know, 4 out of those 5 games, I think the calls that we've started to hear about possibly changing manager, they're sort of at medium, they'll become at a high volume.
How many times are they going to change managers?
Well, because they're under new management now, effectively as well.
So that's the thing.
Like in the past, they would have.
So that's a good point as well. Yeah. So, and a lot of people, and I'll hold my hand up. We are biased in terms of Ange Postecoglou, but I've actually heard a lot of Spurs fans actually say, well, You know, and that was our point at the end, right? You know, at least give him 10 games at the start of the season after what he achieved.
Would it be injuries?
Would it be a possibility that they would look to bring him back? Daniel Levy's gone. There was obviously the problem was between Daniel Levy and Ange. Would that be a scenario where they would say, okay, should we bring him back? Perhaps not. Sometimes big clubs are just like, no, okay, we're just. But
yeah,
I don't actually see. Because the players obviously had a massive connection with him. Yeah. At this moment in time, it's quite evident that a lot of the players are a little bit distant, and whether that's because of the way that he's playing or because of his man management style or some things that we don't know about, we're not quite sure. But I don't think it's like, you know, outside the realms of possibility that they're not considering that.
And Bozza, I think Thomas Frank's suffering from what Ange ironically did at Nottingham Forest. Nunes was loved.
Nuno, yep.
By the
Forest
fans, and Ange came in, so it was almost an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Unless he won games straight off, bang, bang, because the fans they didn't want him to leave. And now I think Thomas Frank's in the same sort of
I think that's right,
situation.
Just makes it more difficult.
Yeah, because everyone loved Ange and the way he played, and it's chalk and cheesy, right?
Yeah, and so it's
So Daniel Levy. So when Daniel Levy was still at the club and they made the decision about Ange, it was okay. We've got something to build off here and springboard off the Europa League triumph. We want to contend in the Premier League. Do you see it? The type of football that they're playing.
Well, no. I mean, no one can see it at the moment. The thing about it is, it was just the whole thing was very poorly managed because I think Ange has come out and said that he already knew well ahead, actually, at the end of the season that he was done. And then they actually bought Thomas Frank. You know, it wasn't as though...
10 million.
Yeah, they went and paid for this guy. So what you're saying is we've identified this guy as someone such an outstanding fit. Yeah, who's so much a better coach, who's perfect for our club, that we've waited for him and now we're prepared to pay for him. That's astounding when you're talking about a guy who was mid-table, you know, had never proven himself above that.
Never coached a big club.
And so what you're doing is gambling and saying, well, that football we reckon is so outstanding, it's going to work in what is still a big
But Thomas Frank's, the way he played was well known. He played low block and counter-attack, where Tottenham fans want their team to attack.
Yeah, I think
he heads bets.
Yeah, I see him as pragmatic in the sense that... so he will attack and he'll defend, but he doesn't have a core philosophy. He just he'll come up with what he thinks is best. And we saw that against PSG. Like, they went, you know, quite on the front foot for in the Super Cup before the season. Yeah. But then when they went up, they then sat back. Yeah. I think that's him. The problem, I was saying to you earlier before, with pragmatic coaches is when you give them that opportunity, they'll usually go backwards. Like you're right, you know, attacking coaches are attacking coaches. Ones who are in the middle, usually they're more cautious and therefore they take every opportunity to say, oh, no, this team's a bit like this, we're just going to go here, right?
Because the Arsenal game.
They're more fearful of conceding than they are wanting to score goals, right? The 90% of coaches. So that's what I see in him now. I can't understand the fit to Tottenham. How does Tottenham say that to dare is to do? Is this what they say? and then they say, well, this guy's a perfect fit for us and we're going to play for him. Like, that's crazy decision-making.
So on the weekend after the game, Vicario made that mistake where he just decided not to kick the ball out. They scored 2-0 up and that proved definitive. Thomas Frank goes at the fans for booing Vicario after it, saying it's unacceptable. What's worse for you, Boz? What's going to make things more difficult for him in the coming weeks? Purely losing games or taking the fans on in that respect?
He's got to be very careful with taking the fans on. That doesn't matter who you are. You've got to be very, very careful. I can understand what he's saying there. He's trying to stand up for his players. So that, again, tells me something, that he's basically still trying to prove to the players, I'm your man, I'm standing up for you, but he's also got to take into consideration the biggest, well, amongst the biggest, I think it's the #1 season ticket price in the whole of the Premier League is Tottenham. Okay? And their fans
can't win at home.
And their fans are entitled. They're entitled to their opinion.
Well, actually,
they
can't even play at home.
Yeah, no, but they are entitled to that. If they choose to boo, and we've all been booed before. I've been booed by my home fans.
I've been booed for 2 decades.
Yeah. So if they do, then so. But I don't really know what he expects them to do, to turn around and say, "Oh, you know, you keep going. Well done." Like the guy made a mistake. Okay, I don't think it went throughout the whole game. I definitely didn't pick it up. But they're going to have a reaction, and this is part of the psychological problem that I just touched on in that first answer. With Tottenham Hotspurs have playing at home. It's a huge stadium, a magnificent stadium, one of the best stadiums in the world. And there's big expectations there, always has been, but even more so with the recent years with the stadium and so forth, and understandably so. They've spent a lot of money, not only in the stadium, but on players as well.
Yeah, massive.
So he's just got to be really careful with that, because I don't think he, right now, is secure enough with the fans to be able to come out and say that. I understand where he's coming from, but he's just got to be a bit careful.
Well, this is a step up to a big club. This is a step up to massive expectations.
And Fozzie, I think Thomas Frank, he probably is, but what an opportunity you got given.
Yeah. Okay.
Tottenham were nowhere near Champions League. Ange gave them that by winning the Europa. That was the big, not only the trophy and the parade they had, which they hadn't had in 17 years, but he gave them Champions League football. And that is a huge privilege for a new manager coming into the football club. So, he's got a lot to deal. I saw his press match, his
press
conference this morning on
before the Newcastle game.
On YouTube before the Newcastle game, and he was talking about, and he kept on saying it's not an excuse, but when you say that, it's an excuse. So he's saying they've got not much time between games, like 2 and 2, and then another 2 and 2.
Neither does anyone else.
I know. So
the question is then, do you have the squad? Yes, you have the squad. Do you have all the injuries of last season? No, you don't have all the injuries.
And do you have the belief? Yeah. Do you have the belief? You've got to believe in your team.
Yep.
And
for them to believe in you.
For them to believe in you, and I don't see that. So
which is interesting, Rob. Sorry to cut in, but I want to get
you need to cut in, otherwise I'll just keep going.
Excellent. I've been here before. Yeah. I've seen this before. Pedro Porro, Mickey van der Ven.
Yeah.
In recent home games, they've stormed off the pitch annoyed. And Mickey van der Ven just brushed straight past Thomas Frank.
2 weeks ago. When
Pedro Porro did it on the weekend, and he lost his mind on the pitch, which happens. They're emotional players. You can understand it. They've had a result that they didn't want. But does that happen when you're all as one?
No. Doesn't. Never happened with Ange.
Did it happen with Conte?
And I don't think so.
No chance.
I can't.
Did it happen with Mourinho? I don't think so.
Look, it's never perfect. We've all been in a we've all lost games, big games, where you're disappointed.
Exactly.
But I can't ever remember a time when I would have, or anyone I played with, if the coach or manager came towards you, you wouldn't shake his hand, or you certainly wouldn't do the things that they're doing here.
Shocking.
Which is so obvious to everyone.
It's sending messages. It really is.
That's why the fans are worried, because it's a very, very bad time.
Look, I know we shouldn't read everything into social media, but I tell you, for him at the moment, it's horrific.
Oh, it's a pylon.
It is.
You're right.
Unbelievable.
You shouldn't.
I shouldn't.
But talking of Spurs and how we have seen them perform effective football very, very well this season away to Manchester City.
Yeah.
Early in the season.
Yeah,
it's not like they cannot do it, and the template's not there from Thomas Frank. How does he find it again?
Well, how does he find it? First and foremost, and we spoke about this last week of Arne Slot. In my opinion, and the boys will tell you, when you have a group meeting to get things out, which is the obvious thing that comes to mind, there is a lot of players, for whatever reason, who are a little bit reluctant to come out and say things in front of everyone. For whatever reason, maybe their own personal shyness, maybe they don't want to offend anyone. We spoke about this last week of Arne Slot with Liverpool. He needs to go meet them in small groups or one-on-one and get to the bottom of it. Because, like I said, these messages, and I'm listening to things here that Robbie and Craig are saying, I'm thinking, this is more and more and more. He's going to lose his job. Okay, you can say what you want about Tottenham sacking managers and all that, but they've set the precedent. And like I said, looking at these games, they haven't beaten Newcastle in Newcastle for 4 years, since 2021. That's never an easy game, as you know, to go to St James's Park. Those other games that they've got, which we spoke about, they're actually, there's 7 points. There's a very small gap between second place, Manchester City, and 14th place Everton. There's only 7 points. And Spurs are one of those teams that are only 7 points behind second place. If you want to really go into the, off fourth place, they're 6 points off, if you like. So the season's not over. But if this continues, like I said, and plus when you're making little jibes at the fans and it continues, I'm telling you now, it will get to the point. And remember, Daniel Levy's not there. Daniel Levy, in my opinion, I mean, unless we're told otherwise, but I'm quite certain, 99.9% certain, he was the one that would have pushed for Frank. He was the one that paid.
Must have been.
But he's not there anymore. So he's not there anymore. So the people,
then-
So he's not protected.
Yeah.
But then, from our perspective, we need to be consistent. So we're saying Ange shouldn't have been sacked, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
He
should have
had
been
all the
given another-
injuries. The
at
football
least
was
another
trending
10
the right way.
games,
The
yeah?
first season was good. You win the Europa League. You get 100 million to the club. You have to stay. You have to keep that person.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who they are,
No.
and they must be able to be given the third season
100%.
without any question. So you can't say that Frank also has to go. I mean, you've got to, look, and that is not far off. All I'm saying is his football is not what Spurs should have.
It's not the right
And
fit.
I can see why the fans are upset. If I was a Spurs fan, I would be upset by this football. I would be saying, you
Well,
are
they say
absolutely
it.
kidding.
They openly say it.
So their motto should be to dare is to sit in a low block.
Yeah, to dare is to do, unless you don't really feel comfortable doing it, in which case, don't worry too much about it. Just do whatever you think is necessary, even if we're going to play like absolute rubbish. That should be there.
But if he keeps losing, they'll have no choice.
Yep.
I'm telling you, they'll have no
Yeah.
choice. Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much. They're playing Newcastle and I just don't want to moz it.
Well,
No,
there is
well,
a theory.
yeah.
There is a theory. They get most of their points away from home. That's
Yeah,
their
well,
only
they-
hope.
yeah.
They had the best record away from home.
That's what I
yeah?
mean, but because they're rotten at home.
Is it because they play away football or their mentality is slightly relieved?
A little bit
To
of
be
both.
away.
A little bit of both. The psychological aspect, the booing of the fans.
Yep.
I think the expectations at home have got to a lot of
Can
the players.
become a big problem.
Yeah, it can become a big problem.
Yep.
So it's a bit of that, and I think what you said as well. He's a pragmatic coach, like Fozzie said. Away from home, it does suit them
and
better
you can
the way he
understand the
plays.
fans because, they go with their kids or they go with their mates, and you're coming home depressed every time because you're losing at home. That's the
Well,
one
depends
place.
on what you want to see.
That's the one place is you want to see your team win at home.
That's true, but let's say if you're a Nottingham Forest fan,
Yeah.
you're hoping for a win. You know that they're just going to play in a certain way, and
Yeah.
you have no expectations that they're
Yeah.
going to play like Real Madrid,
Yeah.
right? So, but when you're a Spurs fan, I would have thought you actually think that they're going to play some football.
Yes.
That I think is the
Because
problem here.
the status of the club is up here.
They're one of the biggest spenders across Europe in
That's
the
right.
last 10
it's
years.
not like they're a mid-table club. To
That's
be
right.
fair, that's where Thomas Frank's come from.
That's the problem.
And this type of manager, I think, the pragmatic manager, they do quite well.
Yeah, very.
And you look at David Moyes when he went to Man United, it was just too big for him. And the expectation of the way he played, he could not give that to United. So I think there are examples. Now, could he turn it around? Of course, he could. It's possible. Is it probable? I would say no.
Yes, no. Is he still there at Christmas?
Oh, I say yes.
I think he should be. I think
Given that it's 3 weeks away, I'll go for the
You
yes.
made the bet on him. You've got to see the journey.
I'm not so certain because one of the main reasons he was brought in, we keep using the word pragmatic, was because of defensive stability. They've conceded 11 goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a week. So if that's one of the main themes as to why you brought... This is why I always say to young coaches when they go talk to young coaches, it's actually riskier for you as a coach, stroke manager, to play a defensive manner. Because if you're not winning, if you're not doing what you're about, which is actually keeping clean sheets, keeping it very tight, if it's going the other way, well, people are going to go, well, you know what, this is not really entertaining, is it?
But
so we're not getting anything, yeah?
Ange signed most of these players.
Yeah.
So Ange signed the players the way he plays. So now you put a manager in that has these players like Udogie, you got Porro on the right-hand side.
Kudus,
These players want to go forward.
Van der Ven.
Yeah, Van der Ven. Look at the goal he scored.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, one of the best.
Yeah, yeah.
it'll be
Frank
one-
did sign
yeah.
Kolo Mwani,
Yeah.
Xavi Simmons, and who was the other? Kudus as well.
Kudus, okay.
Xavi Simmons sat on the bench the other day
That's
against
true, yeah.
Fulham. I could not work that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why
it's
would
a
you
very
sign
bad
someone like
sign,
that to unlock a low block
Very bad sign.
and then have him on the bench?
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, because
Anyway.
it's not working within the team. And so the thing is, like, how is he going to solve that problem? Because he's taken out a big creative cog to become even more kind of closed and just work on the very fine margins. So you're not trying to take the game to other teams.
Which is what Ange does.
So the thing about it is, I think, a lot of clubs, not all clubs, but the fans have a certain expectation and the club has a certain culture. And the coach they'll usually sign a coach to match that. What I see is that they've signed a coach who doesn't match what the club thinks it is and the fans think they are. And therefore, he's going to have to change that. And the only way to change that is to be uber successful.
Yep.
If you're not very successful, then you're going to more quickly come under criticism.
Yep.
Because you're doing something the fans are not enjoying.
It's against them.
Okay.
Still to come on Added Time.
And what are you going? What is going on?
Has the world gone upside down?
Yeah.
completely senseless. No need for it whatsoever.
When you get divorced, some people do get remarried. I said, okay.
Sometimes supporting the game means holding it accountable. It means
I
creating
agree.
higher standards.
When they draw Group F and I spend some time in Mexico and I lose myself in a bottle of tequila, I'll be celebrating. Onside, offside. So, Robbie, the premise of this is onside, you agree with the statement I'm about to make. Offside, you do not agree.
Well, you know what? One thing I say, he was offside all the time, so you can take that for granted.
That's because I was head down after.
He should. How many times he has said in commentary he shouldn't be offside there, and the number of times you actually did it in your career?
Yes, quite.
Okay, onside, offside. Chelsea, Arsenal, brutal game of football, that one. Things were flying in, cards as well. 1-1 in the end, good game of football, really enjoyable game of Premier League football. Out of that, Chelsea are Arsenal's biggest rival for the title this season.
I think yes.
Onside.
I think so. Onside, sorry. Is it just one word? Because I can't do one word.
No, carry on.
No, so when you think
We'll kick it around here. We'll see who...
So when you think Casado gets sent off in the 38th minute, and they've still been able to play the way they did.
Why was he shocked when he got a red card, by the way?
Well, because he's Casado.
He wanted to continue. Did you not notice how he went down and no one touched him? He wanted to continue the act and to say, I can't believe it.
But I just think Chelsea are getting... I think they had a difficult start to the season. I think you guys said it because I watched one of the shows. And a lot of people were saying it. They won. They're world champions. You know, people... I know it's a new competition, but... Reality is they beat Paris Saint-Germain. Cole Palmer's yet to come back in, their best player possibly. And we thought the start of the season might be difficult because they basically didn't have an off-season. And I think that's proved true. They seem to have come through it. Their signings are good. Pedro runs the line superbly. Enzo Fernandez is
exceptional, I've been surprised. But the thing about, so remember Man City played the Gunners, and then in the second half, basically, remember we're talking about Guardiola said, "Oh, sorry, you know, we were a little bit tired after. I think that might have been in Europe during the week, and therefore we had no alternative but to basically play 5-4-1." It was the first time we've seen, Guardiola do Mourinho, and we're on here going, "What is going on?"
The world gone upside down.
So to your point, Chelsea didn't even do that.
No,
that's how good Guardiola thinks Arteta's team is. And they are. So it shows you the quality of Chelsea. I think they've been unbelievable.
Have you got Chelsea closest to Arsenal? I've got Manchester City personally still, given the
I
calibre
had
of
a
play.
few weeks ago, but not now.
I think it's neck and neck.
Yeah, it's neck and neck.
I'm very impressed with Chelsea.
But Chelsea, if you didn't...
The game against Barcelona was unbelievable.
But if you did not see the sending off and you just watched, you just came in and watched, you would never have thought that they were down to 10 men. They played really, really... I mean, two great saves by Roberto Sanchez, it must be said.
Yes.
And Arsenal obviously had a very tough week, but so did Chelsea could turn it back. Arsenal had the derby. I mean, Chelsea, I think, had Burnley. Two massive games for both of them, Bayern Munich and Barcelona. But like I said, the biggest compliment I can pay them is if you didn't see the sending off, you wouldn't have known any different.
No.
I thought they were.
So how good is
Maresca?
And he's a very good example because he had obviously they had about 100 squad. You know, when he took over, remember? And then he had to sort that out, and then there's a lot of young kids coming in. I mean, by the way, Estevao, what a player. But then all of a sudden, they gave him also some patience, right? And then understood what his work is, understood where he's going, looking at all the data and all that. It's not just from the outside. They're going, okay, he's heading in the right direction. Look what he's producing now. It's unbelievable. It's some of the best football in Europe he's producing now.
We mentioned a red card there. There was another one, West Ham, Liverpool. Lucas Paquetá, who's obviously had a few issues off the field. He's been accused of intentionally getting yellow cards. It's been a real ordeal for him. He's actually come out and said that I'm not getting support from the people I should be getting support from, not West Ham, but other people around the world. But onside, offside, that was one of the most, if not the most senseless red card you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, definitely.
It's one of,
Yeah, definitely onside. Yeah, definitely. No need for it whatsoever. He just completely lost it, like you said. But the boys will tell you as well, when things around you in your personal life that we're not privy to completely are not going particularly well, it generally does come out on the pitch. And I think that's what we saw because, like you said, completely senseless. No need for it whatsoever. And, it was a very close game. It was only, was it stoppage time and Liverpool hit that second goal?
Yeah, stoppage time.
So it was very, very close. Still very, very close. So, Definitely onside.
Have you taken a mood from off-field onto the field sometimes, Robbie?
Mate, I've had a mood for 2 decades, like I told you. So, like, I guess I must have. Fozzie played with you, he did. So,
Foz, can you
you
speak
were always the same, isn't it?
I
The
think
Bulldog was always the same.
But at least I was
That's
consistent.
why you're a top pro. That's why you won a thing. But the thing is, people often forget, it's a good point, is people forget that actually players are humans. They actually are not robots.
Exactly.
And therefore, stuff does happen. But yeah, to have a yellow card and then go get another one, purposely without, like, it's just nothing worse
Knowing
that you can
that
do
you've
as
had
a
the
player.
yellow card.
There's nothing worse you can do to your team.
Even if it was harsh.
Yeah, because you can go into a tackle, mistime it, and and even if you're a bit brutal, whatever, everyone go, okay, that's bad decision. But to do that, where it's clear to everyone you're going to let everyone down, that's when the other players just go, mate, you're.
That first yellow, though, I reckon the ref snapped.
Doesn't matter, Doesn't matter.
I reckon the ref snapped at him, lost patience with him.
That's a good point, but it doesn't matter.
But like Foz, it doesn't matter. Like,
Because he knows
you
he's
can get it for anything.
Sometimes you can get the worst yellow card
it doesn't
ever.
matter.
But whatever.
But you've still got
it.
You've got the yellow card, like he's saying. You've got the yellow card. No more.
Yeah.
Just no more. That's it. That's it. Nothing.
Hey, our third one, this discussion, settle in, people, this could go for all this one, because Alan Stajic, after the Sydney derby, in which his Western Sydney Wanderers were successful in over Sydney FC on Saturday night, you were there, Robbie, great atmosphere, I was watching at home, as were you guys, it was coming through the screens, it was great theatre. Stadge went on this... long answer
rant.
about where... Yeah.
That's good. Rants are
good rant.
Yeah,
good rant. He got it off his chest. He
No.
said...
I like coaches saying something.
Can everyone
great he said it.
just show a bit more positivity about this game in this country? Because we've seen what we've just seen. He went on to other sports, particularly NRL, and said they sing the praises of NRL all the time.
I was disappointed he said he watches 6 games every weekend. It's like, what
7.
are you doing, mate?
6 or 7.
How are you finding that much time?
I think that was a slow... I'll tell you about that in a minute.
All right, go on.
But is there too much criticism of the game here in Australia?
Boz, you go first.
No, you two go first. Age before beauty.
OK, I'll go, Foz. First, Stadge, I spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to him for about half an hour. Great chat. Congratulated him on saying something, because not many people will have the guts to say, and he's got a platform.
Not enough.
And he's done it. We disagreed on a couple of, like, in a friendly manner.
Sure.
Because, if a team...
the game is about disagreement.
Exactly. And if a team loses 5 in a row, well, there's got to be criticism. I mean, you can't just say, oh, well, everything's rosy. And anyway, there's a place for criticism. And the big thing... he said he exaggerated on the 6 or 7 NRL games. I said, thank goodness, because I think that would get you in more trouble, even though we all like to watch a game of NRL, but not 6 or 7 in the weekend. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't watch it too much,
said to Stadge, I said, all that you said, and you can't name names, but yes, we can be more positive, but we've been our own... and you talked about the 40 years. I said, I've had 45, because I'm older than Stadge. And I get what you're saying, but there was a point in time where we were okay, when, and I've told you to.
You mean when the A-League was on a high?
When the A-League was
we had 60,000
in a good place, and it was a good place.
Okay,
and
about 12 years ago, I reckon.
Yeah, and I said
9 years ago, the 60,000.
But I said to Stadge, and I say to everyone, and it's because everyone who's not a football fan, outside, when I go to Fox, the NRL boys, or it's the AFL or the cricket boys, people around, and they look at me and they go, you got rid of the lowies. Yeah. And I go, yep. Yeah. And we got rid of the lowies was the biggest mistake we ever made. Now, I'm not saying what they did was perfect and the way to go, but Frank Lowy loved the game. He didn't have to set up the A-League. He didn't have to bring Fox Sports. Anyway, to get more into this, and I always wondered, and we wondered at Fox sometimes, why did he get John O'Neill, Rugby Union? Then why did he get Ben Buckley from AFL? And then why did he get David Gallop from NRL to run, be the CEOs? And I remember saying to you, sometimes even I thought, maybe a Charlie Yankos or, Peter Tredenick in those times, who were quite successful in what they were doing. But he knew. And Stephen Lowy said it. When he left, he said, be careful what you wish for. And we've given it back to the football people. And look what we've done with it. Divorcing the APL from the Football Australia, and I said to Stadge, and he agreed with everything I said, and was the biggest mistake. And the APL know. And now I met someone from the APL a couple of years ago, this was now, and he said, when you get divorced, some people do get remarried. I said, OK. But
What does that mean exactly?
well, it means that they made the APL. The APL made a mistake. You know, they made a mistake in. They know it now.
Oh, remarried to the same person.
I see.
Remarried to the
Okay,
same
right,
person,
okay,
which
okay.
I never did, to be
Right,
fair.
right,
but, so these are mistakes that we have made. And, you know, where are we now? You talked about Peter V'landys. He's brilliant, yeah, and I agree. Vossi, mate, how great is the game of rugby league? That's all he says when he commentates, and good on him.
Yeah.
But we don't have one.
Don't have one what?
Peter V'landys. We got no. Who stands up for the game?
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I think, okay, good points. So the thing is, you know, at the same time, all of the A-League owners and investors, you know, were putting in money to their own clubs, and a lot of that money was being used by Football Australia and so on. Plus, I mean, under FIFA rules, they're supposed to be separated, so I don't see them as mutually exclusive. In other words, I think they could have had a separation and still had great people in the game.
But now they hate each other.
I know the fact that, you know, we don't have the same level, I think, of administration and other things. But I don't see the move as being determinative of just because the Lowies left, then it has to be like this. No. It's just bad decision-making throughout the way, I think, in a lot of ways.
But Fozzie, Lowie could pick up the phone to Murdoch.
Yeah.
He picks up the phone to Prime
Sure, but the
Minister.
game shouldn't need that. The game should have been moved beyond that.
I ask people, they don't even know who the chairman is. They don't know who the CEO is. No one knows who Enter Isaac was. I get people, I say, who's the chairman? Oh, I don't know. These are football people.
So you're saying the big leadership, but does football have a problem in Australia, Boz, of living in the now and celebrating the now? Sometimes they're always looking at what we've just discussing here. Absolutely valid points about what's happened in the past to get themselves in this situation. What does the future look like? As opposed to, I think, what Stadge is getting at. Geez, that was a bloody good night of football.
And I was there. It was great.
No, so far as what Alan Stadge said, I think it's both sides. It's VAR, you know, so onside, offside, it's VAR. He's got good intention in what he's saying, completely good intention, and he's right in terms of the positivity about people fighting each other and so forth. But there's a few little caveats on the other side but I understand where he's coming from, so I give him a pass completely. The thing is, especially like journalists who are journalists in general, from my experience about being around proper journalists, not like an ex-footballer like me, their duty, as they've been told, is to write what they believe is the truth for them. So to say, you know, like if something's really obvious in front of their faces, they're going to write it. They have to write it, regardless of whether it's sport, regardless whether it's business, regardless of whether it's politics. Okay, each one has their own bias, but they're going to write it. The other thing is, and you know, and this is probably getting at what he's saying about going behind closed doors and having this conversation. This is obviously not behind closed doors, but from what I've seen, it's been like 5 years, I think, something like that. Is it 5 years? Like since the separation? The separation. Yep. If you don't see exactly what's wrong with it now and can't really say it for whatever reason, no problem, then you're never going to see it.
Yeah.
All right. So it's quite simple. Like 9 years ago, that opening game of the season, 2016, there were 3 times the amount of people. There were 60,000 at the Sydney Derby. Okay, so that's a 300% decline. And that was good on Saturday night. Okay, I watched little bits of it, didn't watch the whole game.
It's very, very good.
But it was very... But,
broadly, I think it's excellent, actually.
Yeah, but people are voting with their feet and with their eyeballs. And you've got to ask yourself why. You know why. And maybe Stage can't come out and say that so directly, and maybe that's a conversation people need. But they've been told. Yeah. Behind closed doors, they've been told about what needs to be done. And if they don't want to do it, what else do you... You can't just go... You know, he mentioned the Joeys and all that and sort of... OK, but, I mean, we haven't got Vince Rigari here today, but ask Vince Rigari or even you and Marco Monteverde at the Telegraph, if you were to go to your editor with just the Joeys, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I'm sure, wouldn't they turn around and say to you, oh, well, we might give you a little bit, but... Vince Rigari will say, well, I tried to put this in, but they're not really interested in that.
Well, I think Marco gets me into trouble. It's mostly him. I think Stad... I laughed to Stad. I said, you did say that, you know, in columns you should be more positive and that. And then he said, well, there's only one column, he said. And I said, well, that's us. So I said to Marco, I said, it's you, mate. I said, you wrote a few...
Oh, you palmed it off on the ball, Marco.
Well, you know, it's got our photos at the top of the page, so I get dragged in there. But a few weeks ago, Stadge was on a bad run, and he put in there that he was under the pump and had already lined up other coaches. So we had a laugh about that. And Stadge is a good guy. You know, he come out, and I congratulated him on his performance in the game, and for coming out and being brave enough.
Yeah, good. No, go, mate.
Using that
He's got the game at heart.
Everyone loves the game, and you have a responsibility as a coach also to try and protect the game and promote the game.
And what he said, Fozzie...
But we don't have to agree with everything.
No, of course we don't.
Yeah,
you need robust...
That's actually the point.
But that's the actual little caveat,
the
right?
point is that in football you should have opinions. This is the point. We should encourage it.
Yeah.
So my view on it is this, that basically where the game is at the moment, obviously crowds are down, and and I think the overall administration of the APL has been extremely problematic. I mean, they had 140 million bucks, so you can't say that that's been well managed, right?
No.
So but my question would be, if there was more criticism, because what happened was the football media was killed.
100%.
Okay, it was because...
Stadge said that. He said he looked at the press score and he said
the Lowies started to kill it.
Less and less.
Because they didn't like the criticism. So what happened is just a few phone calls and all of a sudden there was less people and everyone was starting to be shut down, right? And so therefore there's not as much conversation and therefore you don't have as much in the newspapers, right? And that's been going backwards all the time because the game never liked criticism. Let me make 2 points clear. If there was no criticism in the game and if we didn't engage in criticism, there would have been no Lowies in the game.
True.
How do you reckon they came in? Because the players and our generation said this is not good enough.
Yeah.
Crawford report.
And the Soccer Australia didn't like the criticism. Remember how much they liked
100%.
the criticism? Okay. What about all the coaches? What about all the administrators? Now we've got coaches all around the world. Now we're exporting administrators, professional administrators. How did that happen? Because we didn't sit on our couches 25, 30 years ago and say, oh, well, let's not be critical because, everyone's going to be upset. What we said is the game has to have the very highest standards that we can possibly have. We want to compete internationally, we want to create international class players, and ultimately want to win World Cups. And everyone else outside thinks that football people are crazy for saying that, but we know that it can happen, right? But you have to hold the game to the highest standards.
Yeah, and you've got to strive for the very best.
Right, but at the same time, I think the caveat is you always support the game because we always love it. But sometimes supporting the game means holding it accountable. It means creating higher standards. So therefore, my question to you is this. So you talk about like 12 years ago or something, we had 60,000. In that last 10 years or 12 years, whatever it was.
9 years ago.
Okay. If there was more media more media, football media, and more football media holding the game accountable, would we be where we are today? Could those decisions have made? Because I remember only a couple of years ago when it was this 140 million bucks, the only two who were saying anything was you two on radio and in print.
Yeah, I wrote,
Okay, that money is lost. That money is gone.
But no one's ever been held accountable for that.
Because there was no media and there was no criticism.
There should have been an audit. An independent audit onto where that money went.
Okay, that's what you were saying, right?
And never happened.
Well, then you're being critical. So are you a supporter of football?
Well, I was ostracised.
Well, that's what happens in Australian football.
Mate, I was cancelled by a whole channel.
That's what happens. So the point I'm making to you is a successful sport has a very robust media that holds it to account, and that means everyone across the game, including us. And without that, we are not going to get where we need to get. But it is also true, in my view, what Stadge is saying is that the game can be internally far too political, that's obvious, and hard on itself when it doesn't need to be. So I think there's a balance, but the idea that everyone should just say kumbaya and blah, 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 it didn't get us here. It didn't get us in 2005 to the World Cup. Don't forget, Hiddink had to be brought in. Okay, there had to be criticism for that coaching change to be made. That stuff is not easy, and we've all lived it, right? So, I just think we need to be careful about it. We all agree that we want the game there.
Okay,
and we've got a long way to go.
With all
how do we get
said,
there?
how do we get back? From
That's
where we are.
That's another show.
That's another show.
That's another show. But look,
let's do it next week.
The bottom line is it's been 5 years, and Robbie's right. Okay, they had the divorce. It hasn't worked. Okay, no matter what you say, under the Lowies stewardship, the game went to a place that it's never gone before.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, we've had 5 years now, and it hasn't worked in a lot of places. They've got some big decisions to make about how they want it to go forward. That's for another show.
Absolutely. And next week we'll discuss when the Socceroos draw in Group F.
And that's a big positive.
No,
going to the World Cup.
I'm just about to say, when they draw Group F and I spend some time in Mexico and I lose myself in a bottle of tequila, I'll be celebrating.
Will
the
you
game
be
right
wearing
then.
a sombrero?
I'll be, maybe just that. I'm not sure, but it could get out of hand. But I'm looking forward to that. And next week on At a Time, we'll go into the
quarter-final. We've got to chart the path to quarter-final this
time.
That's right, yeah.
Hey, crystal balls, just quickly, German Cup comes to the screens of Stan Sport as well. We're happy to announce more football on Stan Sport. So last year it was won by Stuttgart. Correct. First game is Borussia Mönchengladbach against St. Pauli. Jackson Irvine, Connor Metcalf, Australian Links, great club, different club up there in the north of Germany. But it'd be good to see Jacko.
And two of our players, there's not many of them. Geordie Boss, I think, is doing he's doing exceptional things at Feyenoord. And those two are playing in the Bundesliga.
Exactly.
They're our best level players.
High credentials. So all of that from the round of 16 onwards to Stan Sport this week. So we look forward to all of that. And as mentioned, the World Cup draw.
Saturday morning.
Yeah,
Saturday morning. So we're in pot 2. Really looking forward to that.
That was good.
Yeah.
Big
because on the rankings, I don't think we're supposed to be there. But they made some key decisions around it.
So very interested to see who we'll get. I mean, with pot 2, like Fozzie said, it's good, but still we could still get a very, very difficult draw.
Yeah.
But as I said to somebody the other day, and I'd like to hear what both your opinions, all your opinions are. When it comes to the World Cup, everybody's ready to, they want to be in the fittest they are. The best. There is no easy game, especially early on. That's the time when the so-called minnows have the best chance against the bigger teams. The bigger teams like to, they like to, peak themselves, build into it.
Well,
and also they realise there's a little bit more leeway for a mistake in the group stage, because remember in the past, you lose the first 2 group games, you're pretty much out. Now, with 12 groups and 8 of the best third-place teams going through, that's going to, that will alleviate the pressure on the bigger sides to start performing straight away.
But the fourth to that is exactly right. But the fourth one in your group is likely to be much, much, much weaker because there's many more weak teams in. So it's likely that everyone will beat them, in which case it's really going to be against the other 3.
Exactly.
So I think there's some dynamics we haven't really kind of come to terms with.
It's going to be interesting to see.
It depends who wins the playoffs. So because those playoff teams now
some other groups are going to have strong teams in there.
But we could get Norway, Italy, and one of the big guns.
No. But I do think that we are due
you don't want to get Norway.
Hang on.
We're due a decent draw, though. Yeah. Because we've had the world champions, or finalists in, most of the time in our groups and whatever. Let's get a decent one where we can...
Well, our draw should be... This is the one I'm hoping for. England, Australia, Scotland, New Zealand.
Okay, there you go.
That'd be a laugh.
But what were you going to say when I said about we could get Italy? The way you said it was...
No, I wanted to jump in with that.
You wanted to jump in with that.
That's the group I want.
No, I'm just saying because the playoff, we could get one of those playoff teams.
Big style. Gents, it's been fun.
All right,
just before we go as well, a big just rest in peace to Billy Bonds. Was a massive loss for the game, and West Ham legend, somebody I used to watch when I was growing up.
So I played at West Ham, as you well know, and the 2 statues... There's 2 of them. There's Bobby Moore and there's Billy Bonds.
Wow.
So he's an absolute legend.
Well said, gents.
This has been another Stan Sport production.